am compelled by Schlock.
Well, happy Schlockingtine's Day, everybody. We are your hosts. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous, and we are starting on time. I barely made it here today because Cupid got me. He shot you with his arrow? He shot my car with his arrow. Oh. So yeah, it's in love with not running. It runs now. It runs now. So hopefully it's in run with loving. It's in love with running. Boy, I'm on it today. So the movie we are talking about this week, Chris, I'm sorry. How are you?
I'm good, man. I was not myself nor my car were shot by Cupid. So our car running lovingness is fine.
Well, good, because you're taking the head on this one. You're taking the lead on this one. See, I'm saying things that don't make no sense.
Well, so the movie that seems appropriate because there was a lot of things in this movie that they said that made no sense.
Oh, brother. Oof. So the movie we're talking about is Cupid. It was released in 2020. I believe pre-pandemic. It was released in February. Of course, not February 14th, but close enough for the for the content. Yep. And I think maybe it would have served it a lot better if it was released during the pandemic or filmed during the pandemic. But so, yeah, I don't know what that means. That's all I got for the intro.
Man, well, let's do our we can pad out the intro with the boilerplate.
Yeah, well, we got to run some time here.
Right. Like, subscribe, watch. We're on Facebook streaming. We're on YouTube streaming. Pretty soon, hopefully, we'll have just like the audio only up on wherever you can get podcasts. If that's how you like to listen, we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. So reach out to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Some other movies. We love to have conversations with you. We like to have conversations with each other, especially about movies like this.
And remember, we spoil everything. We are a bunch of dirty spoilers.
Right.
So, and we're probably going to spoil the heck out of this movie because I think maybe toward the end of the show, we're going to try and rewrite it a little bit. I think we were both coming into this in agreement that this was probably not a very good movie, but we don't want to just be spoil sports the whole time. We don't want to just be a bunch of naysayers. We want to see like what could have been better. What we want to solve some problems here. We don't want to just make problems here. Yeah. So stick around toward the end and we're going to see what we can do, to maybe help this movie out in the future if they decide to scrounge up a couple $100 more and remake it. So I think this movie is pretty interesting in that last week we watched a movie, the Velocipaster, that seemed to be a movie made by very talented people, very adept people, and they're specifically trying to make a bad movie. This week, I think that we saw a movie made by people that are not so honed in their craft, trying to make a good movie. Would you agree with that assessment?
Ish.
Ish?
Ish. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into it. Let's
get into it.
But okay, so
hit me with the web of schlock. Tell me who made this movie.
Well, Scott Jeffrey made this movie. Now let me just pull up the IMDb thing because this was a little too hard to write everything down. So, we can pad the time here a little bit more too. It's written by Scott Jeffrey, directed by Scott Jeffrey, produced by Scott Jeffrey and Rebecca Matthew, which I'll get into in a
So it's
bit.
a Scott Jeffrey joint.
Oh, yeah. Casting director, Scott Matthews. Production, editor, Scott Jeffries. He's pretty much, except for the cinematographer, and he's done it all. So props to someone taking on that big of a role.
Yeah.
Now here's the interesting thing.
Yeah, sorry, I want to stop you real quick because I feel like I just totally came out of the gates just totally shitting on this movie. And I do want to recognize that it's very hard work to make a movie. So I don't want to downgrade the people that worked hard to make this film. I know that you put in the hours.
Yeah. And so
I'm just saying it didn't pan out, friends.
Right. So here's where I'm going to slightly disagree with you. Maybe just tweak it and see if you can come around. We can meet in the middle. As a producer, he and Rebecca have a British company called Proportion Productions. And as far as I can tell, the first movie they did was in 2016, 2017. Okay. So maybe 5-6 years, right? Going on. 103 movies produced.
Wowzer.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now, almost all of them are written and directed by one of these two people, or co-directed by these two people, who also do so much else. Almost all the actors and actresses that were in this movie are in one or two other of their movies. Now, They don't really have any connection to the outside world of film that I can tell. A couple of the actors were some uncredited stuntmen on some major movies that were filmed in England. One of them did some stunt work for King Arthur, the Guy Ritchie one, but not enough to get credited, right? That is the closest thing that any of them come to being outside. So we have the web of schlock, and we like to see how everything connects to all these other movies, right?
Right.
There is none.
You're saying it's an inbred web?
Rebecca and Scott have made their own web of schlock, which, whether you like this movie or not, is amazing. They're it's like this weird Blumhouse-esque kind of thing. But let me read some of these titles to you, and it'll help you kind of get what they're going for. Mother Krampus, The Bad Nun, Bride of Scarecrow, Curse of the Scarecrow, Mummy Reborn. There's most of these are on Tubi and other places. We almost picked one, the Ballad of Humpty Dumpty.
Okay, so I think I know what's going on here, and we were about to touch on it last week, and I called them Ashcan films, and it turns out that comes from Ashcan Comics, where they would just make some comics to basically show that they've published something. Same thing with films, they'll make a film to retain the rights to a film, and they just basically make it to come in under budget and to produce it. This is not that kind of movie. They are called mockbusters. Is what they are.
Mockbusters. Okay.
They're not. They are meant to be made under budget, right? For very cheap,
right?
But they are meant to, and I don't know how this goes today, since everything is streaming. But they were originally made to sit on the video shelf at your local video store and sort of trick you into getting them. So you'd see Transformers. I want to see Transformers, but I'm going to get Transmorphers. Maybe that's just as good.
I have, we're going to circle back to this. I have a story from as a kid about this exact thing. They're called mockbusters because they mimic a blockbuster, but they're made under budget and really cheap.
Yeah.
Okay. So
they can get some of that sweet rental money. Not
to keep praising Scott Jeffries, but He's directed 14 movies since this.
Since this, and he has 4 upcoming. So what I think their modus operandi, like their big picture thing, is quantity over quality. Clearly,
right? But they're not incompetent. Like, they put a film together. There are some good things in this movie, right? So if he has the ability to direct 14 after this, I guarantee that 14th one is not as bad as this.
Right. Yeah. We talk about that a lot. The more you do, the better you get. The more you produce, the better you get.
Obviously, they found some formula that works because they're cranking them out. Like, since 2017, they only had 1 in 16, and it came out in 19. So since 2017, 103 movies produced. Now, I'm sure most of them are of this caliber or less, but there's still like something. There's something like schlocky about that, right? Which makes up in my mind for a lot of the things in this movie that were not good. So that is a giant web of schlock there.
That's very interesting. That's some schlocky gold. Well, so I have some things potentially to add to that a little later on down the line. Let's get into good.
Wait. Let me circle back to we'll get into good, but the story.
Circle back.
Yeah, the mock buster. Okay, so this is not a new thing. I remember as a child, The Little Mermaid was in theaters, right? And I really wanted to see it, but for some reason we couldn't go, or it didn't work out, right? But then I saw it at the video store, right? The Little Mermaid. So I had
came out.
Yeah, so my mom rented it for me, and I get home to watch it, and I'm like, what is this? It was just awful animation and acting and stories, and it was just like, you could tell it was like just whipped together or had been sitting somewhere just waiting for like Disney to come up with Little Mermaid. So that was like 89, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, well, I mean,
Little Mermaid, is that public domain?
Right.
Yeah. So they don't even have to change the title of it.
Right. But as a little kid, I had no idea. I'm like, that's the movie.
Like, man, Little Mermaid sucks.
Right. And then later on,
that Hans Christian Andersen is full of shit.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, this is not a new thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, very interesting. So what we do is we go through the good, the bad, and the schlock. We have a little list for each one of those, and we kind of discuss them. I'm going to just rapid fire you my good list real quick because it's very short. So the storybook intro, that is something that while I thought it was just fine for this movie, I thought it was a little long, but I do think that is a very smart storytelling device when you have a limited budget and you are trying to make the story seem bigger and more epic than it is, using like simple animation to sort of set up this bigger world that your story is going to take place in. So that's my first good. My second good is weird. The bullying, right? Which was a big portion of this movie, half this movie. Elise bullying Faye, where they steal Duncan's phone, the hot teacher's phone, and it makes her think that he's texting him, and they get some nudie pictures ish of her. I just felt like that was pretty realistic modern bullying. And I'm being pretty loose on what I think is good. I'm really giving these a lot of credit, but I do think that was an interesting modern setup for this type of story. And that kind of brings me to my last good thing, is that I do think that this all had an interesting setup in the end, like that modern bully, that retelling of the story. I think there was a movie that came out in like 2000 called Valentine, where it's kind of a similar premise. It's a revenge flick, and it's someone who's been scorned by love or something like that. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I think that's an interesting modern retelling to sort of cash in on the day slasher movie, Friday the 13th, graduation day, Valentine's Day. An interesting way to cash in on that in a modern age. So that is my good for this film.
I have exactly 3 good as well. My first one
just came up with the last one off the top of my head.
Nice. Well, yeah, because you got to give them something.
Yeah.
Well, my first one is the storybook intro.
Right there.
Right. It's a smart device. It does go on too long. The animation gets a little sloppy toward the end, but all in all, I think it's a smart device, and I love opening a horror movie with it. It can set up. I don't think it set up this movie very well because of what the movie became, but I loved the idea of it, and that was probably my favorite part of the movie. I'm like, oh, I'm pumped for this, and then my next thing is the bullying. I kid you not. I love how awkward it all gets, and I love the dynamic of it all. I don't think they executed it very well, but there's something solid there for a movie idea. I like that. I would have liked to see more of the mother, and we'll get into this toward the end when we kind of like fix the film, right?
Yeah.
I like that the one girl's getting revenge on her classmate, because that girl's mom is sleeping with her dad. Like, and then you're like, where does the dynamic of morality of that mom of like, well, she wants to live her life and do her stuff, but then does she? The girl admits that she's being bullied because of the mom's actions. So then the mom, it's just a really interesting dynamic, and I wish they would have explored it more. And that goes to my third thing. I think that the whole idea is fairly solid with interesting character dynamics that you could make a really strong film out of this. It's like a satanic Mean Girls, right? With Demon Cupid, like. That is a movie
on paper, for sure.
On paper. Yeah. So we had the exact 3 same good things.
Wow.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to bad real quick, because I really want to get into this rewrite. So I hated the use of color in this. And it's really funny because when we love gushed all over Night of the Comet, they use a very similar color palette, the green and purple and red, I think. And they use it in this, and it was just all over the place. And I thought maybe it's for the dance, and it made sense when we were in Faye's bedroom, that it would be like this, gothy purple bedroom. But it was like in the teacher's lounge, the bathroom, and like I just started not to be able to stand it. The other thing I didn't like, the makeup. So I think we've talked about this. I've been rewatching, watching for the first time in some instances, all of the old face-offs on the Sci-Fi Channel, where they have like the monster makeup competition. They see who can make the best monster makeup. And seeing what those people can do with like an hour's worth of work looks at least this level, if not better. And so I was just really kind of disappointed in this face. I mean, if you look at the mouth, right, there's no like lip line at the end of his teeth. I mean, it's just so clearly a prosthetic that's been glued onto this dude. I don't know, just not great. And the top knot. What's with the top knot? But at the very least, I feel like they could have edited around that to not show the face. Like I wouldn't have shown this face at all.
So let's pull up the other picture we have of Cupid, the one where he's flying. Now, here's the opposite problem. That looks so awful. It just looks so like you did it on your phone. Like, so, they have him at a distance so you don't see the horrible face makeup, but this doesn't make it any better. It just, when they were looking up in the sky, it just looks so fake, but not
which
in
is
that
funny.
Velociraptor sort of way.
Yeah, I think that this is actually the type of special effect that the Velocipaster needed, like to really bump it up that notch.
Yes, this would have been perfect in the Velocipaster. It is not good here. So, because the production value was higher on this film. It looked better. It wasn't shot better, but it looked better because just budget wise.
Yeah, correct. And so as far as it being shot better, I will add that this is like my biggest thing that I didn't like about the movie. And it took me a second to like really catch on to it. It was during the scene between the two teachers. They're like having a beer and they're talking back and forth. And I'm just like, are these people painful. Are they bad actors? Like what is going on here? Like, why can't I stand to look at this? And it took me a second, but I figured it out. So when editing footage together, like I don't think it was necessarily shot bad. I think it was edited bad. And I did look at IMDb and I couldn't find an editor for it. So I'm guessing.
Well, he edited it. And the only way you know that's to watch the credits of the film because it doesn't list him. There's no editor in the thing.
So it feels he's doing it on his own.
I think some parts were edited really well. And then some were edited awful. And I think it comes down to that quantity versus quality of like, I have a day to slap this movie together and I really don't care. I'm moving on to the next project.
Well, so what was going on in the dialogue is that when you're editing together, and I mostly only know this academically, not really in practice, but I could see it play out here in this movie. When you're editing things together, a conversation together, you have to take, but before you switch the shot from one person to the next, you have to take the audio and overlap it with the next shot, because the idea is that the camera are your eyes. Like if you're watching two people talk, it's like you're a third person standing back and looking back and forth between these people talking. Now, when one person says something, you don't sit there and keep looking at them until the next person starts talking. Before the first person stops talking, you anticipate the next person speaking, so you go and look at them first. So the camera would cut. Now here in this scene, you can see that the actors, they say their line, and then there's like nearly a second of silence after they say their line before the shot cuts and goes to the other actor, and then they say their line. Then there's like this awkward second pause, it cuts and then goes to the next. So instead of making it like a real conversation that you're looking back and forth from, it makes it like a awkward Zoom podcast where people are waiting for each other to quit speaking before they jump in.
Should I speak now?
Go right ahead, my friend.
Okay.
So I got two last things in my bad column.
Okay.
The time crunch I didn't get right. As soon as Cupid shows up, it's like what, 5 o'clock? Like
right.
Maybe, I mean, theoretically, it's like right after school. So I don't know what time school gets out in England or wherever they're at. But around here, it gets done around 3:30. And so the thing is, like, they're supposed to wait it out till midnight, but they never have like a scene where people are like waiting it out so time doesn't pass. Like they just go from one thing
it's
to the
like
next.
It feels like it's an hour and a half of movie, and then all of a sudden it's 10 till midnight. You're like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And the end was just such a mess with, I wanted to see Elise, the mean girl, really get her up in comments, but it didn't really have anything to do with her actions as a bad person. It had to do with her going, whoops, I looked at Cupid when I wasn't supposed to. Now I'm dead. Then she comes back alive for a last scare and they slap her with the book and she dies, I guess. And it was like, what was that? And then the lovelorn friend who loves Faye, who this poor bastard, they saw his arm off. They just like completely ignore him. They don't
rush him to the hospital. They just stand in awkward silence.
Yeah.
Like where they do that editing where you're talking about, where they just stand there awkwardly silent, and then you cut to the other like, well, I guess I should get him to the hospital.
Well, and this shot is such a great shot because look at the expression on Helen, I think her name is, on her face. She's got this real like, I think you're going to have to buy the drinks tonight. And they're like,
that's
and he looks so
like you would
like
not have
die.
that conversation. You would not even take him into the gym. She takes this guy who's bleeding out and minus an arm into the gym to flirt with her kind of boyfriend, saying, well, you're the one buying drinks now.
Yeah, this poor dude. And that's all I have for bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I could keep going, but
we need a little, this show has to run a little long, man. We got about 5 minutes left and we haven't gotten to Schlock art. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make it 10.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to rapid fire through the bad because the acting is just awful. Some of it, here's the problem. In Velociraptor, all the acting's awful. Some of it is because they're bad actors, and some of it because they're good actors acting badly, right? So it's fun. This is just all over the board. Sometimes some actors are acting good, and sometimes they're acting awful. It just feels like they got 1 or 2 takes, and that was all they got. And so I think a lot of these people are probably good actors, but not all of them. But it just doesn't come across. And if it was all bad all the time, it would be enjoyable. But when some of it's good, it makes the bad just really prominent and really shine. Yeah. And you're like, the special effects were pretty awful. Confusing character relationships. A lot of the dynamics, like I liked the idea behind the dynamics that was in the good. The actual way they play out is just wildly unbelievable. Like the teacher getting kissed and then like, I'll just brush it under the rug. And and then like when they're flirting, that scene you talked about, the 2 teachers, it is just the most awkward thing to watch. And it's just like,
you could feel the lack of chemistry.
Yeah. And you feel the lack of chemistry with like almost everyone. I think the lead, Faye had a good vibe for being that kind of girl. But yeah, convoluted plot, not believable character motives and actions. Like just the dialogue is awful. I mean, also gum and hair seems very silly as a representative of being bullied, because the other bullying stuff seems to work, and that just felt like very 3rd grade.
Right.
And then like both the teachers come in and they're like, if you keep messing with her and putting gum in her hair, I'm canceling the dance, which is also weird because all the other kids want the dance too. So why is it just her? It feels like the teachers are almost bullying the bully.
Trying to.
Right. The Book of Magic. This is kind of schlock, but it's also in the bad because it's not set up at all. Who are all these spellcasting girls?
Right.
Yeah, and then there's too many openings. You have the fairy tale opening, then you have the atypical cold open of most horror movies, where a completely other set of characters are killed by the monster. Then you have the actual opening where she's casting a spell, but you have no setup. Like, where did she get this book? Why does she have the book?
Right.
Why does she?
I could have sworn she said she got it from the internet, that she was looking on the internet for spells.
And then she made the book, or did she order it from this like weird? Yeah,
I don't know.
Nothing. Yeah. Also, the school seems strangely empty. Like it doesn't feel like it's a working school with actual kids. It feels like,
well, it's not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's just a bunch of bad. So that's it.
So I think for our schlock, I'm going to skip a lot of my schlock stuff because I really want to get in. I want to rewrite this movie, man.
Okay.
What would be the first thing that you would do to sort of up the quality of this movie?
Give the characters actual motives and make them more connected. Like, so I cared at all. Like, I just don't care about these characters. Her actions are so extreme of what she's doing that you really had to earn that. And I don't believe it. I don't know any of these characters because you spent a cold open and a fairy tale open.
Right.
Both were too long, and it's already under an hour and a half. So I would set up all the characters better, so I actually cared.
Right.
What about you?
And that setup, that's not necessarily, especially in the age of digital film, right? That's not exactly an extra expense. I mean, the time that they took, the time and money that they took with that cold open, they could have spent building up some relationships.
I mean, a lot of it would have taken place in the sets they already have. Some more stuff with the mom, more stuff in her room, more dynamic with the guy who has a crush on her, plus Duncan the teacher. Yeah.
So what I would do is I would turn this into a non-supernatural revenge flick, and I'd take out the storybook open. I'd take out the cold open as well, and like you said, build up those relationships. The dynamic of being in high school and being bullied, and like you said, that interesting story of the mom sleeping with the other girl's dad, and how that goes. Now, I would do the same setup where they get in trouble and they have to stay late at this high school dance to take it down as a punishment. And then, like I said, take out the face, and I would do shots of a person in a Cupid outfit, with the wings and whatnot, showing them chaining up the doors and whatnot from outside. And they start picking people off one by one. Later in the movie, when they do like what typically in horror is like the investigation scene where they try and figure out what's going on, that's when Faye thinks that she summoned the Cupid demon. And that's where we put our storybook portion in. Like she starts to tell the story of here's Cupid, here's how this happened. And so they're thinking, and hopefully we as an audience are thinking like, is this the demon? Who is this? And it turns out it is potentially her lovelorn friend who is trying to get revenge for the girls messing with her, something like that. Because revenge porn, which is what they did to her, is a very detrimental thing, right? That can really ruin someone's life.
Yeah, that's one of the most hardcore things you could do. So basically, the lovelorn guy who's in love with her, he sees that they did that to her, and so his only course of action is to one up them. And how do you beat that? You kill them, right?
Right.
So he's getting revenge because they pulled that very, very sick prank.
Right. And then that would just make the Valentine's Day themed killings make them make a lot more sense, like the cookie cutting and
the chicken cookies, the flesh cookies. Let's get that image up real quick.
Yeah, what a ridiculous thing. The old chicken flavored heart cookies.
Well, and they're floppy, but yet the person says they must be overdone.
Right. Yeah.
Like, there's
I associate
no way,
floppy with overdone.
Yeah, like does he magically make them cookie-esque? Because it looks like flesh with blood on it that's in a heart shape. It doesn't look like a cookie.
Right. Yes. I mean, so ridiculous. But a big question that I have is, why would Cupid, a Roman god, right, from this certain time period, why would he have all of the trappings of a 20th century Hallmark card?
Like when he uses the roses to kill the one girl, Brit, I believe.
Yeah, he shoves them down her throat in the bathroom. It was very violent.
You know
scene.
what? I'm giving that the Schlockality award.
That was pretty good Schlockality. You can see in this picture here something that really bugged me about the special effects. You can see that the roses, they're supposed to be thick enough, right, to jam through her throat and kill her, but they're all like bent up. Right. They're not like in a straight line implying that they are strong enough to pierce somebody. And you see that like throughout the entire movie with the arrows that are sticking in people. They're just like floppy and loosey goosey, not really sticking in someone, right?
Right.
But whatever.
Right.
So that's my fix for the movie is that I would make it a kind of a bit of a whodunit, keep the face obscured, do the whole it's you, and then choo, they're deid.
Yeah.
The person who knows who it is dead.
An alternate take would be to continue with the bullying. If they know that she thinks she's casting spells and magic, then it could also be like the next level of bullying from the bullies, but then something goes wrong, and I don't know why they would start killing, but that could also be interesting.
Ooh, so they're the ones that accidentally summon the Cupid demon?
Well, no. They start off as like a prank because they find out that she believes in witchcraft. So, but
also
then
interesting.
But then for some reason, which I don't have right off the top of my head, one of them snaps or does something and would start the killing. Yeah. No, I wish this movie was better.
Well, me too. And I think that's probably all of the time that we have. We're about 6 minutes over, so I think we should start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
So I get to pick the movie this week. If anybody wants to give us any suggestions for movies that we should be watching, we'd love to hear them. But I'm going to pick a cult classic, which I've never seen, called The Stuff.
The Stuff.
I believe it's about killer yogurt, and you can find it on Tubi, the Tubi app. And I guess until next time, I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. We've both been compelled by Schlock, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy, y'all.
Valentine's Day.
Happy VD.
Schlockity schlock. Schlock, 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 schlock. Schlocky, schlock, schlock. Schlock. Schlock, schlocky, schlock, schlock. Schlock. I am compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Wait, no.